Hi, I'm Gemma Naylor, and welcome to the Creatives Couch. Today's guest is the brilliant actor and sports host, Ben Harlow. Ben, thank you for joining me on the Creatives Couch.
Thank you for having me. What a lovely start to the week. Always good to see you. Nice and bright in here. I love it.
Absolutely, just like your personality, Ben.
Well, thank you. Yes, especially after a couple of double espressos. I'm like, ooh. But
Oh,
yeah, lovely to see you. Lovely
you
to see you.
too. So let's dive straight in here. So you
Sure.
started your career at the age of 15 by being a member of the National Youth Theatre.
Yeah, well, I did a load of sport and acting at school. Had a fantastic house tutor, Tony Hadley, who actually coached a lot of British athletes. He was a great guy, but he was head of drama as well at the school I went to in Birmingham. And yeah, so school shows. I think my first part in a school show, I was a corpse. What a lovely war. So
Oh, what a part.
off to a flyer, like completely nailed it, Gemma. I tell you, it was wonderful and nice and relaxing as well. Not too taxing on a stretch of a 2 hours bliss. But yeah, then sort of did a few more other little parts at school, and then he suggested that I give auditions for National Youth Theatre again. I was just 15. Auditioned in Birmingham, and it was quite a big deal. I had to learn a Shakespeare monologue, so my best Shakespeare. And then, just went in for a chat with, I think it was Ed Wilson, who was artistic director then of the NYT. And a few weeks later, got a letter from them, not an email, of course. This is like, mid-70s. No, not quite that early. I'm old, but not that old. And got a letter through. And of course, when you're 15, you get some post at home. It's like, oh, this is it, And it had National Youth Theatre of Great Britain on the top and said that I'd been accepted into there.
Amazing.
Which was great somehow. I'd spent a summer holiday in London on a course for the first year with some brilliant people. And then the second year I got into production with them. It's now, I think, the Peacock Theatre in London, but was the Royalty Theatre then. They used to use it a lot. I think they used to film This Is Your Life there, so just off Kingsway in central London. And did the Lionel Bart musical Maggie May for, I think it was a 3-week run, which was brilliant. So from being this young lad in Birmingham to being in London, not only was I doing what I absolutely loved, but it's kind of where I sort of started to navigate life, I guess, and my confidence grew. I was away from home at the age of 15 in this big scary city. But the best part of it was that then Roger Moore, 007, of course.
Oh, of course.
I think he was a patron or president of the NYT. So we finished the show, went down there, getting changed, and there was a knock on the door. I was like, I was a bit brummy then, so I was like, come in, and it was James Bond. He just went, great show, guys, and I was like, thank you, Roger, thank you. Yes, that was a great memory, but just the NYT for me, I guess, was where I first realised that that I think I'm quite good at this, but I just feel myself and comfortable within a group of people who were like-minded as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So obviously you're so young and impressionable that age. I'm so glad to hear that was a positive experience for you.
Yeah.
But so you mentioned that at school sort of you loved drama, but also the sports passion there. So was it like straight away from the word go, you were sort of very interested into these two separate career paths?
It's like I kind of chose the secondary school I went to because they were brilliant at sport and they had a really good reputation in drama, and I loved my sport. I was a goalkeeper, played cricket. Had trials at Aston Villa, got released from them, ended up at Walsall, then down at Kidderminster Harriers. So, but weirdly, I enjoyed playing more with my friends at school. Like, I knew I wasn't good enough to make it as a pro footballer, even though I loved it. But the joke was I'd be playing like Tevier in Fiddler on the Roof on the Friday night at school with the world's worst fake beard, then being goal, shouting at the defence on the Saturday morning.
Amazing.
But I love both worlds, and it was lovely to work, with people who love their sport and, people who love their creative side as well. And for me, it's where I felt comfortable.
Yeah, it's brilliant that you brought both worlds together, because I think that's where the really interesting things happen for creative people, is when they bring elements of their sort of true self to their work. So do you mind sharing with us, Ben, like how you became sort of an England cricket host? Like, what was that journey like for you?
Well, acted for years, like a host of brilliant jobs, not so brilliant jobs. And of course, between acting jobs, you know, you still have to pay the bills. So you find those in between jobs. I was a waiter. I was like the world's tallest waiter for years at good
Now
old.
you've got loads of tips.
Good tips, yeah, but also a lot of customers with sore necks. I'd be like, "Are you ready to order?" They'd be like, "Bloody hell, you're tall." But again, loved it because you bring your personality and you know, you're almost playing a bit of a role. And you know, I love people. And it was nice to chat to customers. And then all sorts. I had an awful in between job. I was Lenny the Lion, the England mascot at the rugby.
Oh gosh,
so that was another one. But you do it and you just embrace it.
Of course you do. Yeah.
You're usually working, you know, with actors or creatives too, so it's always good fun. But I hadn't read the brief for that, so I turned up at Twickenham, really hungover, and I hadn't read the brief properly, Gemma. So I got there, and the supervisor guy was like, "Oh, your costume's round the back," and I was like, "Huh?" He was like, "Yeah, you know you're Lenny the Lion for the day." And I was like, "Oh my God." So I was hungover, put on this Lenny the Lion costume, and for that day only Lenny the Lion had human ankles because I was too tall and the costume was too small for me. But again, you know, you just do it and you get by, especially as, you know, a young actor in London, just kind of getting going in life as well. But yeah, and then one job came up and it was to be a brand ambassador at the cricket, so for one of the sponsors of the cricket All England games. But not only that, so you had to like sign people up to join, I think it was the England fan club. But they also wanted somebody who had some cricket knowledge to host like a lunchtime Q&A with a legend of the game. So we had some brilliant, like Mike Gatting, ex-England captain, John Embry, and of course I loved it. So again, it was like playing another role almost. It was like in my head, I was like, I can do that. You know, I can pretend to be a host for, you know, a Sky Cricket host. And I loved it. And of course, it was an environment that I loved. I love the game of cricket. The people are wonderful, so supportive. It's just a nice environment to work. So did that season, did another season, I think, doing the same role. But then you start to get to know people within the game. And I was kind of, you know, thought, well, why don't we sort of have a film crew in the morning? I'll start filming, you know, little pieces to camera with fans, setting the scene for the day. And people, they were like, oh yeah, let's give that a go. That's a great idea. So slowly you're getting to know people within the industry. Slowly they're getting to know you and your personality, that, you know, you care, you know, you're a hard worker, and you know, ultimately that you're likable, and they kind of want to help you as well. And then I think I went off and did various theatre tours, so I missed a few seasons. And I was always a little bit annoyed with myself because I'd get so far with the cricket and then be like, oh, but hang on, I'm an actor, so of course I've got to take this year's contract, you know. And I think, oh, maybe I should have just said no to that and pursued the presenting a little bit more. But you're an actor, so you get a year's contract and a good show. You know, you want to, you know, make your family and friends happy, probably a bit more so than yourself sometimes. So I'd go off and do a tour, but then came back, and then I started to be employed directly by the ECB. So they just gave me a bit more responsibility, and then, yeah, ultimately ended up on the pitch, kind of hosting for the big screen, engaging the crowd. And then when the 100 started, which was, it's the new sort of cricket tournament, well, not so new anymore, it's just had our 4th year. But they asked me to be a stadium announcer, which of course I love, because again, you're using your acting skills to kind of buoy up the crowd, you're feeding off the crowd, combining, you know, the state of play with the atmosphere within the stadium as well. And on the back of that, did a good job. Then they asked me to do the Commonwealth Games, so I called the Commonwealth Games final in Birmingham.
Amazing.
But again, it's almost like at the start of play, for me, it's like, okay, it's like showtime. It's like, you know, you've got to know enough about the game, but you have to bring the skills that I'd kind of learned as a young actor, that confidence and, you know, mic control.
And the showmanship.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're there to kind of like enhance the atmosphere, to enhance, you know, somebody's, like, it might be their first time at the cricket. So to make it fun and engaging.
Yeah.
And so I do that now, and I absolutely love it. The people are wonderful. I love the game of cricket. And to see more and more young people come to the game as well, and to be part of that kind of new influx of interest in the game is fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's been another brilliant summer. I've done 6 test matches and 4 weeks of the 100.
Oh, gosh.
And it's just, cricket a go. But I love it. And I feel so lucky, but I know that I've worked hard. I was there.
You deserve it.
You know, 10, 15 years ago, signing people up, you know, long days, thinking, oh, I'd love to have a bit more responsibility. I'd love to do a bit more than just the lunchtime Q&A.
Yeah.
So I'm really proud of myself, but it's hard work. You have to keep impressing. You have to be reliable. You have to know your stuff as well as bring your own personality to it. And if you get that balance, I think certainly with presenting in anything really, if you
Yeah.
can bring a little bit of yourself to it with that experience, confidence, and likability as a person, that's really going to set you up.
Do you find, especially now, and it's not a criticism of the younger generation at all, but everything being so instantaneous now, or there's that perception that it is, people anticipate they're going to have these great opportunities straight out of sort of full-time training,
Yeah.
and maybe sort of overlook how important consistency in that, you know, continuously showing up, continuously doing a good job and building those relationships, how
Yeah.
fundamental that is for long-term success.
100%. And almost people want that instant gratification,
Yeah.
don't they? Either socially or professionally. And you might get one or two gigs where it's like, okay, I've nailed it. And that's fantastic. And what a great start. That's brilliant. Generally, I'm so pleased for people who
Yeah.
that happens to. But it's the longevity and, you know, that's, I think, what 20, 25 years of grafting as an actor has taught me is you've got to be a good person. You've really got to want it and to have that consistency. And you've got to be so likable, almost like think about the entire team of people you're working with, because if you want to be asked back, you've got to fit into that. They might not have a clue about you as a person, but you have to...
It's a team player.
Yeah, you have to enhance their working experience as well. And then you start to get asked back. Then when you do suggest things, because people have warmed to you as a person, they're like, oh yeah, we'll give that a go.
Yeah.
Or that you're nice to be around. Like, oh, we'd love to have Ben
Yeah.
on this tournament or that tournament.
Yeah.
So that really helps. But the great thing is, of course, about, you know, social media, it's you can advertise yourself.
Of
like
course,
it's
it's a
taken
tool.
me a while. And also the confidence, because I don't know if it's an actor's thing, but, you know, initially it's like, oh, am I going to... People be like, what's he doing? Like posting a picture of me interviewing like one of the world's leading cricketers.
That's amazing.
But, you know, initially it's like, oh, you know, it's for me, it's a job that I love, but, you know, I'm not really a boastful person. But of course, people are getting everything out there straight away.
Yeah.
But then you do learn that it has got a huge part to play
Yeah.
in, you know, making contacts and advertising yourself.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm nearly 50, so it's taken me a few years to realise that get your stuff out there, you know,
Yeah.
just get it out there. Almost, you know, I wish I'd had the boldness and the bravery of younger people coming into the industry, because, you know, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think social media is so interesting, isn't it? Because like you said, it's sort of advertising yourself. But I know some people who are very successful, they view it as sort of sharing into their world. So rather than sort of bragging that they were doing something, they're like, no, I'm
Yeah.
just sharing it.
Yeah,
I'm inviting other people in that weren't there on the day. And I find, just for myself, I personally find that mindset really helpful.
Increasingly, you think, you know, people, you know, not so much my role at the cricket, but people want to see what happens behind the
course,
scenes,
yeah.
or who might not be able to afford to go to a game, or,
Yeah.
you know, have the time, or, you know,
The resources
to go and, you know, experience live sport, that I guess people love seeing different insights. So yeah, that's a really good point.
I mean, you are incredibly likable, Ben. What do you think? This might feel like a difficult question to answer, but you've mentioned as well, like being likable is a huge part of being invited back to sort of, especially when people are creating new things. What do you think makes somebody likable or a really good team player? They're qualities that you've witnessed.
Yeah, I think one is just be punctual.
Yeah.
Timekeeping, be there, be ready, and be prepped. Always just go in with a smile, like a little smile at the start of a day. Your team could be knackered, you can be knackered, but a little smile can give yourself a little raise. If you're exhausted, it's like, okay, I'm feeling good, I'm on the front foot here. You can enhance somebody's morning, just a little hello, a little smile. You know, even I'll go into a ground, I'll say hello to the guy on the gate who probably doesn't want to be there. I'll say hello to the person who's emptying the bins, you know, from the trash from the day before, you know, the day's play before. And it kind of gives you a little bounce back effect, and you get a nice good morning. It's like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
And you might have anxiety going into the day's play or into a job or into a scenario, but it all helps dissipate that. I think just be friendly, be interested in people, and just go in. You can't underestimate going in somewhere with a smile and just like a good energy.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't half help, especially if you're working in a team as well. And, you know, ultimately we work, we want to have a good time. Yes, work can be grinding, whatever you're doing, of course it can. But if you can come away from a day's play or a day's rehearsal or a day in recording studio or a day writing and you feel just happy, well, that's great. That's what we all want, isn't it?
And if you've brought that to other people,
Yeah,
it's like this beautiful energy exchange, isn't it?
Yeah.
You touched on a little something there about sort of, not you personally, but just in general, when people are working, sort of anxiety that can rise. How is it from you going from sort of predominantly a theatre environment where we're looking at sort of 2,000 kind of audience members, sort of tops, to stadiums? Like, that must have been quite a leap.
It was a huge leap. And my God, I remember the first game I did on the 100, my anxiety, it was like, welcome to the anxiety fun fair. The anxiety dodgems were crashing into each other. The anxiety helter-skelter was there. I was so nervous. But then I'd done my prep.
Yeah, you were ready.
And I knew that I'd been asked for a reason. So that was always there somewhere in my head. And that was almost like the spine to kind of combat the anxiety and think, okay, I can do this. But it is. And then anxiety is bonkers because you have this awful knot in your stomach, but then you announce the first 2 batters, you get into it, you get the buzz off the crowd. And it's almost like you're getting that same spark as you're getting at the end of, a 2-hour stage show for 2,000 people, except it's 25, 30,000 cricket fans. And that gives you such a lovely boost. And it's that feeling when you've done the job and you've done it. And it's like, oh, what was I worried about?
Yeah, of course.
I've done it and I've succeeded and I've had a lovely day. But it takes a while, for that to dissipate, even, however many games you're doing a season. And even now you still get that little knot in your tummy, but that's kind of good because you've got the backing of knowing that I've done it and I can do it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I'm alcohol free now, but going into work feeling fresh and on it, even if you do have that little knot in your tummy, even if it's, for morning of a panto rehearsal or a casting or it's the first game of the season and you're at a packed Lords or Edgbaston or wherever, it's just knowing that actually it's literally just a little bit of anxiety or nerves, but that's it.
Yeah.
And you can acknowledge that and you've got the energy to have a lovely day,
Yeah. So you mentioned there, sort of, how long have you been alcohol free now?
So I've been alcohol free for just over, I think it's like 504 days.
Oh God, I'm doing the maths quickly in my head.
So it's over a year, well over a year.
Yeah.
Like I scraped a C at maths. I was rubbish at maths. Sorry, maths teachers.
We won't mention the months.
It was always drama or sport for me, not science or definitely not maths. My God. But yeah, just over a year and a half, I think, and it's kind of like the best thing I've ever done. It's been life-changing.
Yeah.
It's been, it's wonderful.
Was there like a moment in your life where you thought, you know what, I'm going to cut back? Or was it just a gradual thing that sort of crept in organically?
Well, it was kind of nuts, really.
Okay.
So just before I went alcohol-free, I had a hair transplant.
Okay.
So I had my consultation. Oh, thank you. I'm giving it Chesney Hawks. Just for you, Gemma. More like Pete Stringfellow, probably for the older listeners. But yeah, so I had the consultation, and the doctor was like, "Oh, you're going to have to stop alcohol for 4 weeks because it thins the blood."
Ah, okay.
And straight away I was like, because I'm cricket, theatre. After a show,
yeah, the social,
a couple of pints, the social side, but also just to wind down and just go, and it was always the go-to. So 25 years of that. The cricket world is very sociable. At the end of a day's play, you'd be invited out by sponsors and you just sit and have a beer. That would be the go-to. Yeah. But then it went from having fun and, my God, some brilliant times on tours, drinking, just like, oh, wow. But then increasingly, as I got probably about into my 40s, it was when I was going through tough personal moments in my life, it was the go-to, but not to have fun. It was in a bad way to kind of hide, to suppress emotions.
So it was a coping mechanism.
Yeah, and then increasingly in COVID, I started to work at an actors' retirement home, a place called Denville Hall, which is a wonderful place, wonderful time there, but very stressful. You take on board, quite a lot. And my girlfriend, she was working in the evening, so I'd be coming home and just having, 1-2 beers just for the sake of it, and just waking up the next morning like, why did I bother? Like, I'm just exhausted. And And then I kind of knew, and I'd seen a few colleagues from the theatre world, become alcohol free, and you start aesthetically, people my age, like, my God, they're looking good. The improvement in their skin, their eyes, just you speaking to them, their energy levels, their passion for life, for their own creative projects. So I kind of knew for about a year that this was something that maybe I should look at. But it's my girlfriend Rita. It was my birthday 2 weeks after the hair operation.
Okay, so you couldn't drink on
and
your
birthday.
birthday.
And I was like, what? I was like, it's my birthday. Like, I'm gonna have a drink, But it was Rita who said, I don't think you're gonna drink again. So she knew me. She knew me that well that she could probably see that I was becoming a little bit worried about it. That it wasn't a good thing for me, and that my personality didn't need it. So for years, I always thought, I'm, the party Ben, but it's the true me now, that I'm not playing this role of like, oh, let's go to the pub after a show. Let's do this. Let's do that. And weirdly, it's the best thing I've ever done to have that energy. So Rita knew, and it was like, my goodness, she was right. Oh. And so increasingly you're waking up, you just feel fearless. You have energy, and along with the hair, my confidence grew again. All those little creative projects that I had in the back of my head weren't just an idea that I never acted on, because realistically, how many of us have done that, who do that? Like, we'll do this, do that. And it just doesn't happen. But you become fearless, and you start to look better, feel better. And weirdly, it's kind of given me more opportunities personally and creatively, because when I'm in a meeting or in a social environment, I'm completely myself.
Yeah.
That I don't need alcohol to fuel anything, because I'm such, my sort of core setting is happiness. I just want to be happy and make other people happy who come across me, like, genuinely, that I don't need it. And it's this beautiful place now where I'm waking up. If I am having a bad day or worried about anything, which we all do, it's just that I've got to combat.
Yeah.
Not the anxiety that too much boozing can bring,
Yeah.
And it's just, honestly, and I have my little app, where I check my days, and some days you just forget to check because it's like, it's just normal now.
Yeah.
And I feel amazing.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Honestly, I feel so full of energy and like drive. It's without doubt like the best thing I've ever done for me and for my personality.
I think people forget, it's so interesting, isn't it, that alcohol is our go-to feel-good thing to do for so many people, but it's actually a depressant.
Yeah.
And I think we all kind of forget that, because socially it's just so normal. Like you say, after a show, we'll go for a drink, a networking event, there's booze everywhere, that you're not necessarily bringing your authentic self to these conversations and these connections. And sometimes that can feel really isolating, because you go, well, do they like me, or do they like me after a couple of wines?
Exactly. And what I love, and what's great now, is that when you are yourself, because I know myself so well, I'm just myself.
Yeah.
And whatever environment I'm in, of course you have to gauge it, but I'm just myself. And if people don't like me, I really don't care.
I can't imagine that anyone would dislike you, Ben.
Well, you don't know, do you? You don't know. And what is lovely, of course, and wonderful the next day, you just know there's nothing to worry about. You can remember everything. You're crystal clear. And you just have, like this morning, it's just to wake up, having done 4 brilliant days at the Oval with the Test match, and then to have, what starts the week chatting to you, and another exciting opportunity and moment and experience. And it's just brilliant. It really is a wonderful feeling.
Oh, that's so good to hear. So
Thank
let's
you.
talk about one of your creative projects that you've got off the ground recently that's doing excellently. Your podcast, Benji Caffey's podcast.
Yeah, thank you. It's again, it's sort of been in my head for a while, and we'd moved up to Liverpool for Rita's job just before Christmas. We both did Pante. Then Rita was straight into filming, and I was at home. So there's only so many days you can cope with talk. We got 2 wonderful dogs, but at the time we just had little Harry. He's my little buddy. But there's only so long that I can put up talking to Harry for the day. So I was getting a bit bored, and of course, one needs to work. But it was because I was alcohol free that I was just like, well, let's do it. Let's act on what I wanted to do for ages.
Yeah.
But my goodness, I'm not technical. I don't think many creatives are.
No, it
That
doesn't
I've
always
come
go hand
across
in
any,
hand, does it?
So literally the process of learning, because it's just me, you know, I produce it, I host it, I research it, I drop it every week. It took me a while to get my head around the right software, how to do that. But that I knew the talking side I'd be okay. But that feeling when you drop the first one and it's up there against my favourite podcast, it's like that sense of achievement. Again, it just gives you such a wonderful spark and a boost, and it's great. So the catalyst was becoming alcohol free. So if the guests want to talk about being alcohol free, not everybody's alcohol free at all, but ultimately it's just a lovely 40-minute listen to raise a smile,
Yeah.
just a nice message to kickstart somebody's day or week, that is just a really relaxed, easy listen. And I suppose that's the message of the podcast. Just say hello to somebody, because you do not know where it might lead to. If you have a chance to try something, do it, because even if you think at the end of whatever experience it is that this isn't for me, you've tried, but 90% of the time you'll get something from it.
What do you think it is about, because you touched on it before, just saying like lots of creative people have these ideas, but they procrastinate and sit on things for years. What do you think it is that stops creative people moving forward with their own ideas, in your opinion, Ben?
I think a lot of it could be, and I did it for years, the worry about, especially living in London, anywhere actually, is the reality of paying your bills.
Yeah.
Because we all need to pay our bills. And that, I had a period where I was working so hard on like sales jobs, promo jobs, restaurant jobs, where that became the priority. So I was getting to auditions or castings. I'd be here like, not even thinking about my performance in an audition, my performance in an interview or a casting. It was like the relief of getting there on time, knowing that I'm not going to lose my in-between job.
Yes,
because,
you're surviving.
Yeah, just surviving. And you're forgetting that creative side of why you're on this planet, why you've trained, why you've worked so hard to give yourself the best opportunity of doing what you do. And so, yeah, I think that's really key. I do think that's key.
Yeah, it's always interesting, isn't it? And because I know so many wonderful creative people who never move forward with their own ideas and are always waiting for someone else to give them the validation that they're good enough to work in the industry. And I'm like, make something yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's so true. And, you know, if you do take that little leap of faith in yourself, you've tried. And that's a moment to give yourself a huge pat on the back, because you've given it a go. Even if it doesn't work out, you'll get something from it.
Yeah.
And isn't that like such a reoccurring theme? Just give things a try. You'll get something from it. You could meet somebody fantastic. So just, the financial side is, but if you can get that balance, and just even if, I mean, I've done jobs where it's like literally stood outside office rooms for the day talking to a wall, just like, oh my God, in the Learning the Line suit with human ankles.
Oh my goodness.
Hungover as anything. But if you can keep hold of what makes you happy creatively and as a person, keep hold of that, because ultimately you'll get to a moment where your finances might improve a little bit, and it just gives you that little bit of confidence to go with a project that you want to give your time to.
So it's so interesting. Like, clearly a theme for you is happiness.
Yeah.
What is your personal definition of happiness?
I think it's being able to sit down, enjoy a coffee in the morning, and feel content knowing you've got a loved one and some family and friends that if you need anything or you just want to say hello to, you'll get a lovely hello back.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I've been through some tough times, like super low, and it's so it's like almost just feeling calm in yourself, because you've jumped through so many hurdles to find who you are personally and professionally. And happiness is, it's just, for me, just being able to sit with a coffee, people watch. Oh God, I love a good people watch. You know, even when I'm sat with Rita and we love our little morning coffee, we're so old, but it's just being there either with somebody you care and love physically next to you, or at the other end of the phone even, just knowing that support is there and that love, because they love that person you are and who you've become, you know.
Oh.
It's just feeling calm, just just being calm in life is, I think that, to me, that's happiness.
Do you think that's something that's easier to find as you get older?
I do, yeah, because you've learned who you are, and you've probably gone through, some tough times, but you're surviving. We're waking up in the morning, and isn't that beautiful? That nothing bad's going to happen. We've probably both had awful times in our lives. People listening probably have, or are going through tough times, but it always gets better. And if you're so true to yourself, that's like a massive catalyst in your happiness as well, because you know that you're living every day as the person you're meant to be, and that's
It's
great as
amazing.
well.
Oh, it's been so lovely to chat to you, Ben. Just before we
Hey.
finish, what sort of advice would you give to yourself starting out in your career? If you were to speak to, 18-year-old Ben now, what would you tell him?
Don't be worried about being yourself. Don't be worried about getting rejection. And also just keep smiling, because that honestly, will open so many doors to you. But just know that the person you are is good, and you're obviously creative and have all these sparks and drives because that's what you want to do. So go for it. Life is too short. And again, I learned that in the care home. Like this will all slowly grind to a halt. That's reality. So why not? Let's just enjoy it whilst we're here,
Yeah.
and smile and be happy, and you'll get that back, and you'll wake up on a Monday morning like me and be like, life's good. Life's good.
Amazing. Oh, thank you so much, Ben Harlow.